So I know we often talk about what you can do mentally, right? The mindset shifts that you need to make, what you need to do physically, the actions that you need to take when it comes to getting over a toxic relationship, moving on, healing, rebuilding yourself. But there's one thing, and whoo, I'm trying to like hold back my excitement. There's one thing that we have not spoken enough about here. And I believe, I call it a secret actually, because even though it's there, it's been there, I feel like it's something that enough of us don't know, right? So I am here to share that secret with you. I'm not only going to tell you what that secret is, that secret weapon, spiritual weapon, but I'm also going to tell you how to use it. So stick around, get your pen and paper, because this is heavy, okay? Get your pen and paper and let's get into this. So, the secret spiritual weapon against toxic relationships, are you ready? Get your pen, is breaking covenants. Yes, write it down, breaking covenants. Now, some of you may be familiar with this term already, some of you not. I have heard the word covenants before, but it wasn't until an interview that I listened to recently and then following up with my own research that I really understood how it plays a role in our lives. Okay. I believe a lot of you want to know more about the spiritual part, about what the Bible is telling us and how it relates to your modern day life, your life currently. But we don't know how to use it because let's be honest, the Bible can be confusing, especially when you're reading the King James Version. So I'm going to give you some tips. I'm going to give you some resources on where you can also get a Bible that you can actually understand, because I don't only want you to take my word for this. I want you to listen to me. I want you to take notes. I want you to study it, but I also want you to do your own research. The same way I have to do my own research and had to do my own research after watching this interview. I recently watched an interview between prophetess Tiffany Montgomery and Pastor Kevin Ewing, and I'm going to put that interview link in the description box below. But they broke down how covenants impact our lives. Okay. And let me say this, as a mental health professional, for those of you who don't know me, I'm a mental health therapist, mental health professional, and I'm also a survivor of toxic and narcissistic relationships, both in my family as well as past romantic relationships. So I have a lot of experience here. I have made a lot of progress in my healing. I have turned my life around after that, after all those traumatizing experiences. And I have also been able to guide other women to do the same. Now, I won't say I did not tap into God at all. I definitely did from the start. I've always been tapped into Him, but I did it in ways that I understood, right? Reading daily, what do you call it? The daily, I forgot the term, those books with the daily messages, right? I was able to read that and definitely prayer, but I didn't know about covenants. I didn't know about how deep things can be. So this, I believe, is a secret weapon, because this is not just making us feel better. And yes, I was able to move on with my life and start over and rebuild myself, rebuild my mindset to make sure I don't end up in that situation again. But breaking a covenant is deeper in the sense where it is getting to the spiritual part of it, right? It is breaking generational patterns. So I'm going to go into that for you. I know this might sound a little heavy for some of you, but stick with me, because life is multifaceted, right? It's not just about do one thing and voila, our life is better, or even do two things. We have to attack problems from different angles. And that is why I'm so excited about this part, because when I heard this interview, I was like, oh my gosh, like, why didn't I know about this? So I'm sharing it here with you. Let me go further into it, okay? Let's go. So first of all, some of you may be asking, okay, Nailah, what is a covenant? You're saying breaking covenant. That might sound like a whole nother language to you. What is a covenant? A covenant is an agreement or contract that you make with someone else, right? So think of it kind of like a marriage contract, right? You get into a contract with someone somehow, and that is a covenant. Now, in the spiritual realm and spirituality, covenants are sometimes made with the enemy, known as Satan or the devil. A covenant can also be made with God, right? Sometimes covenants are made with other demonic spirits that we are unaware of. Now, as I said, the secret weapon is to break covenants. Of course, we don't want to break covenants with the right one, which is God, right? We want to break covenants with the enemy. And sometimes covenants can be made without us knowing. Let me give you some examples. If we take it back, we'll get to us, how we can make covenants without knowing, but let's even take it back a bit, right? It could be 200 years ago. Maybe your ancestors made a covenant, right? We know that in other times, and even currently, but also in primitive times, or like I said, hundreds of years ago, maybe your ancestors did different spiritual practices where they were in a very tight situation or a hard situation, and they did what they thought was best, which was to worship another god or worship a statue or whatever it is, right? And they make a covenant to that statue or to that god. They offer some type of sacrifice, whatever it is. You know, there's all different types of spirituality, right? And a covenant is made with that. What happens there, and whew, this is heavy. I'm just learning this because for a very long time, I thought it was no big deal, that everyone just practiced differently. People practice different gods. And let me say this before you get offended, because I know some of you may get offended. I am not here to tell you you are a bad person or to knock you for following these things, because we do live in a world where we are offered a platter of different ways, different paths to take. And depending on how you were raised, what you were raised around, right, that we may pick a certain path, right, with the best intentions, right? But however, as I started to understand more about the Bible, throughout the Bible, it talks about only worshiping one God. And I know a lot of times we are told in this world that, oh, it's no big deal. You can do this, you can do that, you can worship this, you can worship that, and it's no big deal. Sometimes, now let's bring it to modern day. We talked about your ancestors, but let's bring it to you right now. I notice when I go into stores, there's so much paraphernalia of spiritual items, much more than before. Before, you would have to go into a special hidden store, right, to get certain spiritual items, right? Nowadays, it is actually considered cool, right? It's being pushed. It's in the fashion. You're seeing the fashion with the evil eye and all this types of stuff. And honestly, everything is presented as if it's positive, right? It looks very positive. And for a very long time, I thought so too. However, what I am learning as I am starting to study more from the Bible, which is the source, right? Not what everybody else is saying. You got to go back to the source and verify the information that you're getting from the outside. Is that when you are tapping into these other gods and other ways of worshiping, you're actually opening yourself up to the enemy, because he is using these avenues to get to you. Now, I know this might rub some of you the wrong way. I'm not here for that. I am just here to spread the word, to let you know what I'm learning. Because again, I even see a lot of Christians doing it, right? People who have identified as Christians way before I have. I'm a new Christian. I'm a new believer, right? Because again, it's presented as something positive. And we're like, all right, if it's positive, then it's great. Look at yoga, for example. I had been doing yoga for years. It's presented as something calm and relaxing and positive and sunshine and, right, salutation and all that stuff. It wasn't until I started to do research that I learned, and I had heard people say this before, but I'm like, they're just making a big deal out of nothing. But that is why it's so important to do your own research and to educate yourself. It wasn't until I did my own research that I read several resources that it actually stems from religious practices. All these poses represent praying and worshiping different gods within that religion. I believe it's the Hindu religion. I'm not certain. Don't quote me on it. Right? So there's so many different things that are out here now that are being pushed on us that's presented in a positive way, and you mean well to do it and to have positivity on yourself and to bless others and have positivity on others. However, it's actually opening us up to receiving spirits and creating bonds and covenants with other spirits that is not of God. And that is the danger. So you may be saying, okay, Nailah, if I am opening up to other gods and so forth, and yeah, so what's the big deal if these covenants are made? Like, how does that affect me now? How does that affect toxic relationships? How does that bring me into that? The enemy is here to destroy. That is his goal. And he will use any avenue. He would package it up very beautifully just to get into you, into your life in order to destroy. That is his goal, right? So that is why making covenants with these different deities, is dangerous. It's dangerous. Now, that's the part you can control. Like I said before, there's other covenants that have been made way before you were even thought to be born that you are not aware of. You have no idea. Okay? But here's what you want to do. So here is what you want to do. If you are wondering, how does this apply to me? Are there any covenants in my family, in my bloodline that I'm not aware of that maybe has caused this toxic relationship? I want you to get a pen and paper as always, and I want you to think about, what family patterns do I see? What negative patterns are happening in my family? Now, here we are talking about toxic relationships, of course. So you want to look at, what are the relationship patterns in my family, with the women, with the men, and not just is it good or bad, but how is it, right? What are the issues, right? And like I said, breaking covenants is not just about toxic relationships, although that's what we speak about here, but it can be anything in your life. You want to look at patterns in your bloodline, and that is going to allow you to start to see, okay, there is a covenant here that needs to be broken, right? Someone, somehow, somewhere, maybe you or somebody else 500 years ago, made a covenant with a spirit, with a demonic spirit that, so here's how it works. The contract is, I give you what you want, right? As a demonic spirit, I'm going to give you, you ask me for something, I'm going to give it to you, right? You ask me for wealth, I'll give it to you. But then 10 generations down the line, they're going to suffer with divorce. They're going to suffer with miscarriages. They're going to suffer with abusive men. They're going to suffer with X, Y, and Z, right? That's a fine print that people don't see, right? That is so when the enemy is helping, he's not just helping because he's nice, because he's not. He's helping so he can destroy on the back end. But that is a part a lot of people are not aware of, right? Because we're just looking at the good parts, right? And again, a lot of times people are, sometimes the covenants are made knowingly, right? And sometimes they're not. But either way, you may be getting something in the front hand, right? That looks good. It's answering what you're asking for, but then there's repercussions for it, right? He's taking something from you, right? So you want to get a pen and paper and look at, what are the patterns in my family, right? Again, not just are there good or bad relationships, toxic or healthy relationships, but what are the patterns? How are women looking at men? Are there single mothers all throughout the family? Are there a lot of divorces happening, right? Are the men, present and helping and being providers, but are they constantly cheating on their wives? Right? You want to look at the patterns. That is the first step. So here is a secret weapon to now how we break covenants. So the secret weapon is to break covenants, but now this is how we do it. So once you identify the family patterns, now you need to go into fasting and praying. Prayer is powerful. Here's what I'm learning, and I'm sharing this with you. Prayer is very powerful, but there are some covenants that are so strong. There are some demonic spirits that are so strong that it takes a little bit more than prayer. And fasting is very, very powerful. And again, everything that I am sharing here with you today, I want you to do your own research, because not only just to double check what I'm saying, but it's also going to allow you to get more familiar with the Word of God, more familiar with the Bible. And like I said, I'm going to put a link in the description box below that's going to give you access to a Bible that is clear to understand. It's not going to be like reading another language, because that's how I felt when I was a little girl and even a young woman reading the King James Version. I was like, I'm reading words, but I don't comprehend what I'm saying. That's not going to happen anymore in this link that I'm going to give you down below. But fasting and prayer is the remedy, the part of the remedy to breaking covenants. So there's a couple important points that I want you to keep in mind when you decide to fast and to pray. The first one is, if you don't see results right away, right? let's say you're fasting, you've identified some of the problems in your bloodline, and these are the things that you want to break, the covenants that you want to break, the things that you want to fast and pray for. If you don't see the results in the way you expect to see them, in the time frame that you expect to see them, do not lose patience. We have to have patience with God. Okay, He has patience with us. We have to have patience with Him. Yes, it is extra work to fast and pray. Yes, it is extra work to read the Bible. Yes, it is extra work to live, to try to live according to the word, but we cannot grow weary, right? We have to continue and we have to maintain that patience. The next thing is, do not retreat to negative self-talk, which is very common. Oh, nothing ever goes right for me. Look, I done did this and nothing is happening. Oh, we're just cursed over here. Don't go into that. There is, like the Bible says, there is life and death in the tongue. So watch what you say with your mouth. Speak positive, speak life over what you are praying and fasting for, and have patience. Another tip that I learned that I definitely was not aware of is, you want to give to the poor as you fast and pray. God wants us to look to meet the needs of the needy. Okay, and that gives that fasting and prayer a boost. And this is something we want to do anyway. We always want to be a blessing to others within our capacity, right? You're not going to give more than you can afford or do more than you can afford. You do what you can, right? But something I am learning is that when you are fasting and praying, this is definitely the time to make sure that you are looking to meet the needs of the needy. Now, as I was watching this interview where I got this phenomenal information from, one of the questions a lot of the guests were asking is, well, how do I fast? When do I fast? There were so many different questions around that, because of course, as human beings, we want a formula, right? Like, do I need to do A, B, C, and D to get, this result, right? So, and those are all valid questions. The prophetess that was part of this interview, like I said, it was a prophetess, Tiffany Montgomery, and a pastor, Kevin Ewing. I know Tiffany does fasting, has a fasting program every month, the first 3 days of the month. So I will leave her link in the description box below. And maybe the pastor does as well. I'm going to leave his YouTube link below so you can check him out for yourself. But fasting can look different for different people. There are some people that fast for 21 days. I've only fasted for 3 days. That was a bit heavy for me. I know as I continue to do it, I will be able to grow, more and more. There's different types of fasting. There's what they call dry fasting, where you're not even allowed to drink water. And then there's, I don't know if they call it wet fasting, but there's fasting where you can, drink water. Try not to get too caught up in all these little details, right? The purpose of fasting is to sacrifice, to give up the distraction of eating, and using that time, showing that you are able to give up to dedicate yourself to what you are asking for, okay? But I'm going to put more information in the description box below so you can start to get some guidance. You can also do some research on the internet to see different ways that people fast. But like I said, get more focus on what patterns do you see in your life? What patterns do you see in your family? And start to pray and fast on those. And the details of the fasting, I personally don't think, you'll be wrong if you did a 3-day versus a 10-day, right? It's also about your intentions. But like I said, I will put some information in the description box below, at least just to get you started. I hope that this was helpful for you. Some of it may be new to some of you. It was new to me, but it is powerful. Please, please, please take the time to watch the interview that I am referring to, also in the description box below. I believe it's about 3 hours, but it is powerful, and it will explain a bit more. It will elaborate a little bit more than what I'm saying here. But like I said, when it comes to patterns, because a lot of people that I have worked with, a lot of people that I have talked to, toxic relationships are nothing new. Okay, even for myself, the toxic relationship that I was in, which was a romantic one, when I was going through my healing journey, I realized there was a direct connection to family relationships that I had, right? So things are a lot deeper than we realize. And sometimes we don't want to go that deep because it can be a little scary. It can mean more work that we have to do. It can mean more discomfort that we might have because now we're like, being honest with ourselves and having to face certain truths that's really uncomfortable truths. But I believe in trying to be genuine, not just with other people, but with myself, right? I'm also always thinking about the next generation. I'm a mom of two, but even if I wasn't, right, we have to stop. And I know this world is all about, self, and it's all about me, but we have to think about the next generation, guys. We can't just think about ourselves. So that the better that we can get, the stronger that we can get, the healthier that we can get, we are setting a new path for the next generation. So keep in mind, breaking covenants is not just about you having a better life, but it's about setting your family on a better trajectory. Share this video with two people, minimum two people that you know, even if they haven't been in a toxic relationship. Because like I said, this secret spiritual weapon is really for any issues you may have. Share it with them. Let's spread this word. I'll see you in the next video.